Welcome to our show. I am your host, Mariana Dalto, and our guest today is Kevin Palmieri. He's the CFO, founder, and co-host of Next Level University, a global top 100 self-improvement podcast. He's a speaker, trainer, and a coach on topics like consistency, commitment, habits, mindset, confidence, fear, relationships, and limiting beliefs. His mission is to teach people what it really takes to go to the next level. Welcome, Kevin, to the show.
Mariana, thank you so very much for having me. I'm excited to chat and see where we go with our conversation.
Me too. I'm excited, and I love your energy. So I keep
you.
telling him since I met him like a while back, and I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So, Kevin, tell us a little bit about your journey starting your business and really what inspired you to become a business owner overall.
Yeah, I was never the entrepreneur as a child. I didn't have a lemonade stand. I didn't have a paper route. That was not how I got into this. I achieved what I thought was external success in my mid-20s, realized that external success did not fix internal voids, and it didn't fix insecurities and lack of self-belief and low self-worth. So I ended up starting a podcast in 2017 because I just wanted to have cool, deep conversations with people because I believed it would help me learn about myself. I fell in love with podcasting. And as I fell in love with podcasting, I wanted to do my job less and less and less, but I needed my job more and more and more because I needed to pay the bills. As you know, Mariana, in the beginning, there's not exactly a line of people out the door saying, "You have a great idea, let me slip you some money."
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish it worked that way, but unfortunately it doesn't. And at that time, my mental health was going down. I was anxious. I was depressed. I was lonely. I was single. And I eventually got to the point where I was suicidal. And that was really the wake-up call for me that something has to change. So a few months after I had that suicidal ideation, I ended up leaving my job and then becoming an entrepreneur without actually knowing that's really what I was doing. So for me, it was from a place of necessity. It was from a place of I can't do what I'm doing anymore. I love podcasting. If I could find a way to make podcasting profitable and I could do this for the rest of my life, I would be the most fulfilled version of myself. How do I make that happen? And that's the journey that began in 2017, 2018, and here we are today.
I love listening to this story because a lot of people start their business or podcasting or a new journey because something happened personally, and that's what made them like make the shift and take action and find a way to feel better somehow. And you found it this way. Podcasting is your passion. I love podcasting too. I love talking to you guys as business owners or podcasters. It's super rewarding. So thank you for your story. So what are the biggest challenges you faced in the beginning with podcasting and trying to help people that way?
Yeah, building demand. I think any business owner, any person who's trying to become an entrepreneur, anybody with a product or service, you might have the best idea in the world, but it doesn't really matter if nobody knows about it. So in the very beginning, it was how do we figure out who is listening to the podcast so we can start conversations with them? And then how do we grow this whole thing? I think that's kind of an experience that everybody goes through. But the thing that you might not guess was a lot of my struggles were internal. I had very low self-belief and I had very low self-worth. I didn't really think I was deserving of success, and I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think I knew enough about business. I didn't think I was enough to actually become successful. It took me like 150 podcast episodes before I was confident, quote unquote, as a podcaster. So imagine all the other stuff that I lacked belief in. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about pricing. I didn't know anything about sales, marketing, anything. I had no idea what I was doing. So there was a lot of imposter syndrome. I was really struggling with self-belief. I was really struggling with self-worth. And I still have moments where my self-worth isn't where it needs to be. My self-belief isn't where it needs to be. I feel like an imposter. I still have those moments today. I've just tried to continue to overcome them for the last 7 years. So yeah, there's been a lot of external ones, but I think if there was a through line, it would be low self-belief, low self-worth, and imposter syndrome. Those are really the biggest challenges I've had.
But I guess the way you overcame those challenges was being consistent, continue with doing the work that you were doing the podcasting, like somehow you believed in yourself because you continue doing the work. I mean, by episode 150, you were like, okay, I feel way better, but you continue working on it. And that's where sometimes a lot of people lack the consistency or they give up way early in the process and they don't know. So how can you help people? Like what tactics or strategies have you used to, to think differently so then you can continue going even though you feel all the things that you felt?
Yeah. It becomes this cycle where if the second you become afraid of something, you don't do it, it perpetuates. So what I started doing in the very beginning was I intentionally went out of my way to do things that scared me, and I gave myself credit for it. Today, I'm going to go start a conversation with a random stranger. I don't care how it goes. I'm just going to make sure I give myself credit for doing that. And there might be someone watching or listening right now who says, Kevin, that is just, it doesn't seem like it would be that hard to do that. Maybe for you it wouldn't be, but there is something for you that would probably be easy for me that's hard for you. You got to figure out what that is, and you got to start knocking down the doors to that. The other thing that really helped me was looking at the most recent and relevant proof. That's why taking action is so important, because when you're afraid to do something and then you take action and the result goes better than you thought it was going to go, you now have recent and relevant proof for the next time you put yourself in a similar scenario. So that's something I still use to this day. And then if you have accountability, I know being an entrepreneur can be lonely. I know it can feel like you're doing it by yourself. Get yourself in an entrepreneurial group. Get yourself in a small business group.
Oh, get your podcast, because you don't feel lonely if you have a podcast.
That's
you're
true
talking
too.
To people every day.
Yeah, that's true too. Just get something where you have some built-in accountability. If there's somebody there with you, you're more likely to do it than just on your own. If there's somebody waiting for you at the gym at 5 a.m., you're more likely to go do something for them than you are for yourself. So accountability has been a really, really helpful thing for me because it increases necessity. I need to do the thing. I'm more afraid of not doing the thing than I am doing the thing. And a lot of it is the necessity that surrounds that.
That's right. I love the fact that you talk about success and how, you gotta track what you've done and what little wins you have that day. And that makes a big difference, at the end of the day, when you review what you've done and what progress you made, right? And accountability, of course, it helps, right? If you have someone, being your buddy or a partner or something, that helps tremendously. And it can give you ideas on how to move forward. You might be stuck, and then that accountability with someone else can push you to keep going, right? In a different,
100%. I think that's why self-improvement is so important. Because your business is not going to grow beyond you. You're most likely, you are going to be the barrier to your business growth. So you have to figure out where are you holding yourself back, and that becomes the journey.
And then, so now, how do you help your clients overcome their own challenges? And what are the typical challenges that you see them facing that is pretty normal? These are the ones that they typically come for me. And then I'm like, I know what you're going through. Let me help you with this.
Yeah, there's really three, because we focus on health, wealth, and love. That's our brand. Health, wealth, and love. I want to make sure I'm a well-rounded human. So under health, it's usually just lack of awareness. Somebody is usually doing a lot of things that are supplemental, and they're not focusing on getting 8 hours of sleep, drinking enough water, making sure they know how much and the quality of what they're eating, consistently weighing themselves. That type of stuff for like physical health. When it comes to love, the most common thing is lack of communication, because there isn't humility, courage, and vulnerability involved. If you are in a relationship and there is a struggle going on, I'm willing to bet there is either a lack of courage, there is a lack of humility, or there is a lack of communication. Something is probably happening within those three. And then the other one is wealth. Many people are given money, but they don't really understand how it works, why it works, how to make more of it, how to spend less of it. So I think in the simplest form, our ultimate goal is to help people raise their awareness to why the problems in their lives are the problems in their lives. And it's usually those those three departments, and there's usually one pillar underneath. So that's really what we've seen. But I think it really all stems from either low self-worth and low self-belief, or delusionally high self-worth and delusionally high self-belief. Either one of those is going to create problems in somebody's life. So those are really the pillars of what we've seen, at least.
What about fear? Do people sometimes get stuck and they have fear and that's why they don't move forward? Do you see that as one of the big roadblocks? It's a
ton. It's a ton of reasons, because I think a lot of people, and I experience this too, I assumed that when I got to a certain point, I would just stop being afraid of things. When in reality, the only way to really stop being afraid of something is to do it long enough where you know you're in control of it. I think that's why public speaking is such a scary thing, because it seems like it's very out of control. But when you do it enough times and you understand how you speak and how you think, you feel like you're in control. Fear, Mariana, fear is one of those weird things where we're the ones who dictate how far we can go. We walk up to the fence and we say, everything on the other side of this fence scares me. I'm not going to go there. And then unfortunately, all of those things become things that we can't have. They become ungrabbable. They become things that we cannot accomplish, unfortunately. So I think fear is one of the biggest things, but it takes courage. It takes humility. It takes vulnerability to admit that. To admit, well, I have this idea, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Ooh, okay. Well, we can work on that. But if you don't admit it and you make up a bunch of other excuses, it's really hard to break through to that.
So what advice would you give entrepreneurs that they are struggling with fear? What can you give them, like some idea on how to tackle that?
Yeah, that's always a hard one, because you kind of either need someone with you to help, like we talked about, having the accountability, or you have to really, really understand that you're probably not going to accomplish your goals if you don't face your fears. And you have to sit down and have a very, very honest conversation with yourself. Are you okay with not accomplishing your goals because you're not willing to face some of the fears you have? I wanted to be an international speaker. I was afraid of planes. It's going to be very hard for me to be an international speaker if I'm not going to get on a plane. Mm-hmm. So I started working really, really hard on overcoming my fear of flying. And I think one step, anytime you're dealing with a fear, is to go seek out new information and awareness. You know how when you take off, Mariana, there's like 30 seconds into the journey, the engines sound different. They turn down the engines. I always thought that was a bad thing. And I always got super nervous. Like, something is wrong. Why is nobody else freaking out? Then I started to watch a bunch of videos about planes, and I learned what that actually was. So if you're afraid of something, go get as much information as humanly possible on that subject. And I'm willing to bet that certainty will help you with a little bit of the fear. You're still going to have to put one foot in front of the other. You're still going to have to take action, but have that honest conversation. Do you really want the thing that you said you want? Okay, awesome. What are the fears that are holding you back? That's been a really, really impactful thing for me. And then the last thing I'll say is put your money where your mouth is. There's something called a commitment device. So we do this with clients often. Either you do the thing that we determined that you want to do. So I'm going to face this fear. I'm going to make this amount of calls, whatever. Or you donate $100 to a cause that you absolutely do not believe in. So you take your money and you say, it is more painful for me to donate to a cigarette company that I don't believe in than it is for me to face this small fear. That's another way to increase necessity and put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, that's good. And it is a mindset shift, right? It's trying to figure out a way to live your life differently and finding other ways to maybe find confidence on yourself. And like, information is good, taking action is good, but maybe those little steps will help you get more confidence that will, like, I don't think it'll eliminate the fear in the beginning, but it'll make it smaller and smaller, and you can keep moving forward, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah. So let's switch a little bit about relationships. I would like to learn, how important are relationships in driving business growth?
Relationships are really a huge part of it. An aligned relationship is even more impactful, obviously. And that's one of the reasons we've had the growth and the success of the podcast that we have. It's multiple fronts. One, we have an amazing opportunity to create relationships with listeners. Real, deep, authentic relationships. I know your name. I know what you do for a living. I know what your life is like. That is a really, really deep relationship. But on the opposite end, when you interview someone and you have an hour with that person or a half hour or 20 minutes, whatever it is, and you really go above and beyond and you impress that person, now you have an opportunity to build a real authentic relationship based on that and the momentum that you have. I actually did a speech at a mastermind with one of our friends now, Evan Carmichael, I don't know, 2 months ago. Evan, we interviewed him on our podcast like 5 years ago. And then we did a really good job. He said, you guys are great. He introduced us to some other people. He invited us to interview him in person. And then we kind of created this friendship. And now we've gotten opportunities from that. But that is somebody we interviewed on the podcast. We tried to do the best job we could do. And then there's some opportunity that came from it. So yeah, relationships are huge. Just make sure when you go in, you're trying to focus more on what you can give, not what you can get. Add value to somebody else's life. It's becoming more rare. And I think it's becoming more obvious why people are where they are. So if you do that, you're going to be leagues ahead of everybody else who's just networking to network.
Yeah, and I think I see that as a big gap for people, mostly new entrepreneurs that are trying to, launch their business, or they're in the beginning after they launched, and they just don't see the difference between giving value than trying the opposite, right? And that's for me, I learned that from the beginning, even like before I quit my job and I decided to do something different, but people miss on that one. And it's key for growing as a person, as a business, any collaboration that you do, that people that you meet through podcasting or networking, it's huge. And people will value differently depending on how you come into the relationship.
Yeah. Just focus on planting seeds. That's all you're doing. You don't have to, I think in the beginning, when you're scarce and you don't have any business and you don't have any demand, you're trying to take somebody from a potential networker to like a client. It's like, I need to get this person as a client today. You just need to build the relationship. If you focus on building a relationship, opportunities will come eventually. Keyword eventually.
Yes, I agree. And depending on what you sell and what type of services you provide or what products you offer, some relationships need to take longer in order for you to really have that person as a client. So it all depends on what you offer, but it's key, and it's key in life. You have to have strong relationships in order to grow personally as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk about limiting beliefs. What are some of the common limiting beliefs you face, and how do you help others overcome those as well?
I think the two are, I am either not enough or I am too much. The I am not enough are people who, for most of their lives, have had very low self-belief, and they haven't taken a lot of chances because of that. And ultimately, they haven't ended up in life where they want. That was me for sure. I think the opposite end of that is people who, they're so into growth, they're into achievement, they're into success, and every time they achieve something more, the people in their lives villainize them and say, how dare you get so smart? How dare you get so successful? Because people are unconsciously trying to hold them back. So people who are, and those are usually people that are afraid of success, and then somebody who has the limiting belief of not good enough usually are afraid of failure. So it's kind of, if you're afraid of success and you're on that end and your limiting belief is, if I grow, the people around me will no longer love me, that is true to an extent with some people. But the hard truth of it is those people probably shouldn't have been in your life in the first place, because they didn't actually value you for who you are. They valued you for how they felt when they were around you. And that's already a dangerous game. So I would say you have to focus on what we were just talking about. You have to focus on relationships and surrounding yourself with people who have similar core values, core beliefs and core aspirations. That way you're safe to grow and you don't have to worry about outgrowing people or being villainized when you do. The opposite end, if you're somebody who lacks self-belief, much like I did, you have to focus on setting yourself up for very small wins. If your limiting belief is I'm not good enough, a lot of people are going to tell you to set massive goals that scare you. I don't think you should do that. I think you should set very small, manageable goals where you can build momentum over time, you can build self-trust over time, and then ultimately you can build a little bit of self-belief. One of the best ways to change limiting beliefs is to inject action. Because when you take action, you start to change the way you think about yourself. So those are a couple simple examples, but we've seen a lot of people who are very afraid of failure. That was me. And then very afraid of success. That was my business partner. And that's kind of what we did to drive towards the middle, towards one another.
Yeah, I see a lot of people in the beginning when they are starting a new business and they may, let's say they had a corporate career and they're going into entrepreneurship. It's such a different life, right? Because you gotta change your mindset, the way you do things. Like it's not the same. So until that point, everyone in your life, your relationships are attached to that type of life that you had. So when you're changing to entrepreneurship or owning your own business, you act differently, you do things differently. And some people they might not agree with you, but that's okay. And that's where things change. And maybe they're not, it's okay if you move on from some of those relationships. They might understand you, they might have an open mindset, and they can, move forward with a new way of relating with you because they see you differently. But people also struggle with that. Like what people was gonna say, or what my family is gonna say about me having my own business or running things differently, or
it's hard. And the thing is, you don't know how some people are going to react. You don't know. My family thought I was crazy for leaving my job. And if it was up to them, I would have stayed for sure. But for me, it's always been that honest conversation of, look, it's my job to make sure I'm fulfilled. I'm the one who has to wake up and go through my life every day. It's up to me to make sure I'm fulfilled. What I can do is I can communicate to the best of my ability why it's important for me to live my life the way I want to live it. Some people will understand and support. Other people won't understand, but they won't tear you down. Some people aren't going to understand and they're going to villainize you for it. But I think if we're just real about that and we understand, you're going to be happy you made the choice. Other people might not be, but it's your choice at the end of the day.
And it's your choice, it's your life, and have the confidence that you can do what you believe it's good for you, for your life, for the ones around you, right?
Yes.
So how has your mindset evolved since you started your business? Because you've been with your business, your podcasting. I mean, I'm sure you made big changes across all these years. So what did you see the biggest shifts?
In the very beginning, I had a very fixed mindset. I assumed the way I was the way I was going to be forever. I remember asking my business partner, what is the point of reading books? I don't get it. I was literally my mindset was so fixed where I didn't think I could learn anything. I was terrified of making mistakes because I assumed mistakes were final. If you make a mistake, it's the end of the game. I was comparing to people who were way ahead of me, assuming I could never get to where they were. I just felt bad about myself most of the time because I assumed that I was terrible. And then eventually, over time and lessons and making mistakes and existing and not dying, I started to develop more of a growth mindset. And now I make more mistakes in a day than I used to make in a year because I'm trying things. And of course, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm living outside.
But you don't feel bad about it because you know that it's a good thing to make mistakes because that's 100%. How you grow.
Yeah, 100%. It's not, I made a mistake, it's the end of the world. Now I made a mistake, it's the beginning of some sort of lesson. Right? That's really the biggest shift now. I used to be afraid if things went wrong, because I thought it was like the final thing. It was like everything was the Super Bowl. Everything was the final game. Everything was for the gold medal. Now I realize almost everything I do is practice. There isn't really a Super Bowl. Every day is practice, and you have an opportunity to get a little bit better. So I would say that really was the biggest shift. I went from There's no way I could ever become that. To the only way I'm ever going to really become that is if I make mistakes on the journey to eventually becoming more of that.
I love it. I love it. That's super insightful. Thank you so much,
You're
Kevin,
welcome.
for that. Thank you for all the insights. This show
Of
has
course.
been great.
I
A lot
appreciate
of
it.
inspirational, and I hope the audience really enjoy all these insights from Kevin. So before we finish the show, could you please share where our listeners can learn more about you, your business, how you can help them?
Yeah, just go to nextleveluniverse.com. That's our website. It has everything there. It has links for the podcast, and you'll figure out pretty quickly what it is that we do. And if I can be of service in any way, my email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. Questions, comments, concerns, shoot me an email. I would love to help if I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kevin, so much for joining us today. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We will add all the website and information, Kevin's information on the show notes. And thank you for being such a great host, a guest. I loved having you on the show. And for the listeners, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed this episode, and see you next time.